And welcome back to Cameron Reads Comics. My name is Cameron. I don't just read comics. I love them. And today we have a very special episode with my friend, Alan Gomez. Alan, how are you?
Hello, I am now fantastic that we're able to record.
We literally, you guys don't know the peril that we went through it took us 30 minutes to try and make this all work. So God bless Alan's patience. We're here now. And actually, I have an intro for you. I don't know if you know, but Alan was the owner of my favorite coffee shop in all the world. And if there's two things I love, it's comic books and it's coffee, and they go together hand in hand. And I have read many wonderful comics I've read at the shop you owned, and it is so close to my heart. So
yeah,
for you to reach out to me and say, hey, let's talk comics, I'm like, absolutely. I also just want everyone to know that I think that marketing wise, and I think that based on all of your interests, because I don't think we know each other very well, but on my perceived interests, like what I've seen you be interested in, I think I just think you are Quentin Tarantino level on the pulse of what is cool. And I mean that.
Yes. I mean, that's pretty flattering, but I never thought of myself as that, but I mean, I'll take it.
I'll gladly gush about it on this pod. So wait, just briefly, what would you say this is even about comic books yet? Because then when you asked me about comic books, I'm like, okay, now my interest is validated. That is just icing on the cake. So what are your hobbies?
I don't really do much. I'm just a stay-at-home dad, so that kind of is my whole life. But other than that, I've been rebuilding a car for 2 years, which that's been a pain in the ass, but also pretty rewarding. This thing was just a piece of trash when I bought it, but I wanted to dive in and build a car. And so yeah, I just decided one day I was going to do it.
How long has that project been in the works?
Let's see. I bought it January 2020.
Okay. What a great year to buy it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I bought it January 2020, and it's a 67 Carmen Ghia, by the way. I didn't even mention it, but yeah, I bought it then. Excuse me. COVID's got me. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to just challenge myself. I'd never built a car before. And so I was like, well, only way to do it is just to buy just a terrible project and see if I can do it. Yeah. And so far I've done it, and I've driven that car so much now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's because also you attend and you've hosted these events called All Makes Welcome, which is a local Long Beach event. And it is you and I don't know if you guys are boys, but the guy who started Butterscotch have just
yeah, we're not so close, but yeah. He actually, sorry to cut you up.
No, you're good.
In his way early days, he had messaged me when Commodity was still in that little space before. He had messaged me about him doing a shop in shop for his stuff, and I had no idea who he was. He was just some random guy, and then I was just I saw that one of my friends followed him, so I'm like, oh, who's this guy? And he's like, oh, he's a rad dude opening up this clothing shop, motorcycle guy. And at the time I still owned a motorcycle, and so I was like, all right, yeah, let's do a shop in shop and whatever, and then from there he started building up his sales and all that. Then he got his own space, and yeah, he comes to the meets fairly often, and he comes and supported Commodity quite a bit.
Yeah It was you two that sparked my interest, because I'm like, Commodity, the shop it got me number one into really cool architecture. And I just mean the interior of the shop is, if I was to curate what I would want this to look like, what I want my life to look like, it's that. And then all the plants, and then it's I now just want a BMW 2002 from 1971, because I think that is just the coolest car. And
they're pretty rad.
It's because of the I don't want to say the brand or the market that you guys have kind of tapped into. And so that's why I was like, oh, I just think it's so awesome.
Yeah.
And so
Well, really, the car meets kind of were born out of selfishness, I
Mhm,
guess, is the best way to put it. Because it's like I want to just see a bunch of cars, and I want them to come to me.
mhm.
And
That's great.
and then at the time, prior to me selling the business, which now I've done,
Mhm.
um, so prior to that, it was just like, being a small business owner, you're always trying to think of like what else you can do to make more money, and like, bring in a bunch of people who want to hang out and look at cars. That's a way to bring in money, because
Yeah.
people come in and they start, buying a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was a regular at spending. I'd go to, because you guys are on the same street as my local comic shop. So my route would be go to the comic shop, go to commodity, grab a cup of coffee, and then I'd spend $40 at the comic shop and then just go spend $40 at the coffee shop, which sounds
Yeah.
impossible, but it's not.
What's funny is I had never been to that one. I'd
Oh,
always
really?
meant to go, but I'd never been. I go to a different one
Yeah.
because it's closer to my house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I'd always meant to go to that one. I just didn't.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
it's my local plug, Pulp Fiction, Comics Long Beach. What's your local
yeah.
shop? Plug them.
I've hit Amazing Comics.
Yeah.
Because yeah, they're a lot closer to my house, and so
Yeah.
that I've been there a little bit more. And then I used to go to the LA Fitness prior to COVID, that one that's like right next door.
Oh, okay.
So I was there all the time, and so
Yeah.
it was just so convenient.
Yeah, those are
Um,
okay. Amazing Comics is where I got my first comic ever. My parents got it for me for Christmas one year. It was I don't know if you ever read Batman Hush. It was the first issue of that series.
I never read it, but I watched it. I
Oh,
watched the animated movie, but the Hush, I did really want to get into those.
oh, we will.
Yeah, and I just never read that one, but
Yeah.
specifically
Let
my
me
first
tell
comic.
you, of
Oh,
all the
what?
movies though, of all the movies, like that is the worst adaptation. So don't even pay any attention to that based on the source material because it's just completely wrong.
Yeah, I kind of gathered that. I feel like they're from the movie, and I've gotten pretty familiar with a lot of that WB animation stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and you can see what has what was changed here and there. Even in animation form, and so it seems like there's a bit more to be desired in that
Absolutely. Okay, but wait, you were saying
movie.
your first comic. What is
Oh, I was gonna say the first comic I think I ever bought was an Elseworlds, and it was I
was it
think it was Gotham Noir.
oh, okay. Is it was that
Um,
Gotham by Gaslight or no? Just Gotham
no, no,
Noir.
no, no. It's a Gotham Noir. It's it's like a noir style, like a film noir style. It
Yeah.
reads like that, and it's where I guess spoiler, Batman's like the villain.
Oh, whoa. It's okay. That's an old story.
And Jim Gordon is like the detective who's like the film noir main thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um, yeah, and I mean, I could be remembering it wrong. Honestly, I still
Mhm.
own it, but I haven't read it since like 2011. So maybe right now I'll get like fact checked by somebody saying that it's so wrong.
I don't think so. It's you know what? It's the Elseworld stuff is far and away, and also like it's 11 years. You haven't read in 11 years, whatever. It's. I remember
Yeah,
I hit you up because you posted a long time ago about Justice League Doom, which is like my favorite animated WB animation movie, the DC animated
yeah,
universe. That's my favorite one, just because uh, it's solid. Um, but you posted, you're like, oh, this is so good. And I was like, oh, that is so cool. Cause like, I love that movie and it feels like a secret.
yeah, dude. I love a lot of the DC animated stuff. It's so fun to watch, and I just keep revisiting a lot of it. Actually, earlier today, before I took my dog on a walk, I was halfway through Apocalypse War again.
Oh, that one's wild. And you
Yeah,
said,
it's super crazy.
yeah, that one, they changed everything after that. And I was like, oh, I was kind of bummed because I thought they had like a really solid animated universe going, but whatever.
Yeah, that was the end. That was the end of the universe.
I was like, oh, that's what we're gonna do with that. Okay, you just take it and go. Okay, so how long would you say you've been a comic book fan? So you had that one story, but I guess how long has your relationship with the medium been?
With comic books specifically, like actually picking them up and reading them, I got into them pretty late, I want to say. Maybe 2011 was probably when I really started reading them seriously. And then like here and there when I was a kid, and it was like my friends had some, and I would like
Mhm.
read some while I was at their house, whatever. And so I grew up really familiar with a lot of the stories, but I didn't read a ton of them. And then, um, and then obviously like Keaton Batman was just
Of
like,
course,
what everyone wanted to watch, and then Richard Donner Superman.
of course.
And so I guess just say Reeves Superman.
Yeah, yeah,
since
yeah.
I said since I said Keaton Batman.
Yeah,
Whoop. Oh my god.
you're good. You caught me. You're good.
All right, there we go.
So I guess like was it what were you picking up the most? Like was it DC? Were you Marvel? Were you indie? Especially in like 2011?
I was I was always really into DC the most.
Mm,
I was really into like so much once I really started getting into it, and 11 years ago, uh I started getting into more stuff, but DC has continuously been what I've been the most into.
mhm.
Um, and I kind of, you know, from time to time, I start thinking like, oh, maybe this is generic or maybe not. But like, Batman is continually like the one I always come back to. That's like home
Yeah,
is
of course.
is where Batman is, and I just think the like him being just so grounded and so like tortured, having like all this like trauma he's lived through, and he's like continually working through it, which is kind of how we all are. Like we all have our own mental struggles and all that, and
Yeah.
so I think everyone just kind of jives with Batman a lot. I think that's why he's become so popular,
Yeah.
and why he's been like his movies have been made so many times,
Hmm.
because it's just like he's just there's so many layers to him. And then you even take it a step further, which I think DC does a really good job of, is layering a lot of the villains,
Oh yeah.
you know? Like, and especially in more recent years, like in the beginning, like Catwoman was just like this jewel thief villain, but now
Mhm.
she's like this, she's torn, like, she's been a villain, the anti-hero, she's been the hero, like, she's always kind of in the middle, you know?
Yeah.
And then even like, even Two-Face, like he was, the White Knight, then he was the villain and all
Yeah.
that, but he's still just like he's so tortured in so many ways. And I think there's so many um there's so many things you can like really like look at with DC villains, which I love, like especially the Batman rogues.
Oh
And
yeah.
then like like Penguin is a really fun one too, even with like he's for sure got the Napoleon complex.
Oh
And
yeah.
then he always wants to have that portrayal that he's the most important, like when he ran for mayor, and then he does all these big things because he wants to be the important big guy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like it's funny too because I I like how you're saying, especially with Batman's rogues, they're like it's so easy to look at because they're each of them are also so individual and different. And I think Penguin also, you mentioned him. I think he's one of the most underrated characters and underutilized. I'm just waiting for like the Penguin story, There's
Yeah.
one that came out a long time ago that's supposed to be really good, but like the best one I've read is like it's a newer comic called Batman Earth 1 Volume 1, and it's just him, being he's just I think Penguin has the potential to be like Kingpin of Gotham City. and
Yeah, and that would
I'm
be
waiting for it.
super sick to see. Because yeah, I mean the last real big dive was Danny DeVito. Like as
Yeah.
far as in like movie form or show form, like yeah, Gotham did it too, but I think Gotham was kind of a messy show, to be
Yeah.
honest.
No, you're
I
right.
watched it a little bit and I was like, it's so convoluted. I don't really want to keep watching.
I read a quote a long time ago about Gotham, and trigger warning for anyone who's a Gotham fan, but it said it doesn't know if it's a Schumacher or a Nolan Batman, and it was trying to be both. And I
That's pretty
totally
true.
agreed. I was like, it was just hard. It was hard. But okay,
Yeah.
going okay, so let's go into DC Black Label. Did you know that this was actually the first DC Black Label book?
I didn't at first, but I do remember after I read it, I kind of wanted to read up more about it. Because yeah, anyone who has read it, they definitely know that it's a story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I read a little bit more about it, and I did see that it was what is it? The writers, the
Brian Azzarello,
Azzarello, yeah, and the other one starts with a B. I can't
Bermejo,
remember.
yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
That's my
Yeah, it was
brand.
it. Yeah, it was their chance to start and do a different sort of DC story. They got like the go ahead to do it, and so yeah, after I finished the book, I went and kind of read a little bit backstory about it, and it's cool to see that they were able to like do what they really wanted to do this one off story.
What did you think about or not Bermejo, but Brian Azzarello's writing style?
It was it's really interesting. Like it was, oh man, it I think the thing that I really took away from it was I really liked that you are finding out kind of what's happening as Batman's happening.
Yeah.
So the way he wrote it, it was like it wasn't like you were like watching a story. It's like you were really living the story, and it's just like um it's like you're finding out along with Batman. You're not just watching him find out, And so I really liked, and it's crazy. Like a lot of it is narration
Oh yeah.
from Constantine, and so like it's just wild to see where it's like Constantine's narrating, and you're just like, I don't even know what's happening yet.
That was me. That was me. I
Yeah.
felt I think I felt that throughout the whole story. And like I'm not a huge granted, I'm not a huge Azzarello fan. He wrote a couple other Batman stories. I think my favorite thing I've heard him write or read from him is he did a great Wonder Woman series at the beginning of the New 52, which is just like all time. And so I never thought I'd like it, but I ended up loving it. So I going into this, I was like, I don't know. I remember I bought the first issue when it came out, and I read it and I was like, it didn't stick with me. And I was like, I really don't care that much about this. So I actually have all three of these issues like in comic form, but I chose to read them digitally because I was like, whatever, it's just right on my iPad. So yeah, I think he's a mixed bag. I think a lot of this story you have to be like very pro R-rated Batman, and I don't know kind of how I feel about that. So are you pro R-rated Batman? Do you think he deserves the treatment?
I I think I am, because um I think you can get really like real with it.
Yeah.
Um because R-rated Batman can mean so many things.
Yeah,
Like
of course.
because it can really, it can just dive into like a lot more like real life experience, um like when I said earlier that he's such like a grounded person, like we don't live in like a PG world.
Yeah.
We kind of do live in an R-rated world just day to
Mhm.
day, and so I feel like seeing um that like realness in comic form you know, it doesn't have to happen all the time, but like
Yeah.
in a story like this, like I'm pro these, you know, these one-off stories where it's like they get really grounded, really real, and you're just like, you know, it's almost a shock to your system, but in a really like good way, where it's just like, wow, like I can still resonate with this kind of emotion, you know,
Yeah.
because it's such raw emotion. um, you know, it doesn't just have to be, you know, like sex and profanity, you know,
Yeah,
for R-rated.
exactly.
um, which yeah, I mean, I'm totally pro, you know, and anything really to like expand the art form and really like get more um more takes, more stories, more all that, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, he's still Batman. He's not going to turn into Deadpool kind of R-rated territory.
Yeah, and like, and yeah, that's the last thing I want. But it's, I think I agree
Me
with
too.
you. I think there's room, but I guess my one critique, and I think I'm fairly critical of the Black Label stuff because I think it's become a lot of Batman, just R-rated Batman, and I'm like, I think there's so much more room in the label to be like right now, actually. A spoiler, but you sent me a bunch of stuff that you're reading, and you picked up that Flash book, that Flash graphic novel, the beginning of the Rebirth stuff.
Yeah,
It's
it's Lightning Strikes Twice is the one I
yeah,
got.
it's the first Josh Williamson Flash run, like arc. And I've been reading that guy. He actually just came out currently with a Black Label series called Rogues. And so the Flash, his villains have a team, and they literally call themselves the
Yeah.
Rogues. They are
Yeah,
doing a Black Label series of the Rogues right now, and it's like
I would love to read that.
it is all time, like it's everything I want from that label because it's gritty, and Williamson has said there's no Flash allowed. He's not going to come in the story, and it's like, well, it's like Ocean's 11, but it's the Rogues. So it's them breaking into Gorilla City to steal something, but it's all of their interpersonal drama. It's so freaking good. So like DC's finally tapping into that well of every other character too that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of, I would love to see a really gritty Flash Black Label. That would be really fun.
yes.
Like, especially with his backstory, like especially yeah, with his mom dying. Like, I mean, I know what it's like to lose a parent.
Oh,
So it's
really?
like there's a lot of emotion that comes with that. So to
Yeah.
see like a way different, grittier Barry Allen would be wild.
Have you read any of Flash Rebirth or Flashpoint?
Yeah, of course,
Okay.
Flashpoint.
I'm just making
That's like
sure.
one of that's yeah. I mean, that's like one of my favorites ever.
Yeah.
I actually just picked up the full novel of
Oh,
that.
like the omnibus, like the big
Yeah.
fat one?
No, it's the first two graphic
Okay.
novels, the like volume 1 and 2. I haven't gotten all of them. No, I would
Yeah,
love
yeah.
to get the omnibus one,
Yeah.
but because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I love it.
Well, actually, going back to this story, Brian Azzarello picked, like, he did a, there was Flashpoint, the main arc, but then there's the peripheral stories going around. Him
Yeah,
and another partner he collaborates with, Eduardo Riso, did Flashpoint Batman. I won't spoil
yeah,
it, but you probably know, but the big plot twist of who Joker is in that universe,
yeah.
that was Brian Azzarello, the writer at the end. So there you go.
That's really cool because yeah, I just saw yeah, DC's coming out with a new issue of Flashpoint Batman.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's a really cool story arc. I definitely would want to read more of that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I'm like, I'm not huge on like big event books like that, and then the peripheral stuff going on. I'm like, I don't know how bad, like, are these usually any good? They're subject to this one thing, but I picked up that one and I was like, oh, this is really good. So shows what I know. Um, okay, so in this story in Batman Damned, how did you like the use of the peripheral DC characters? You had Zatanna, you had Swamp Thing, you had Constantine, and then you had like random ones like Deadman, Jason Blood. Like, how did that
Yeah,
resonate with you?
Spectre and Etrigan were in there.
Yeah, yeah,
I will say the use of the way they made Etrigan was really funny,
yeah,
and it was like really perfect because his rhyming gets so cheesy, but him as like this underground rapper,
yeah.
um, that was that was very appropriate, and it made the rhyming a little bit more easy to swallow, because sometimes you're just like, oh my god, this is just so cheese.
Yeah, it was like, what the that was it's always weird in comics when they like write singing, you know? I'm
Yeah,
like, this is
because you
weird.
don't read it as singing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just reading it as just regular text. And he was like speaking. I was like, oh no, he's rapping. I have to read this over in like a melody to like get the full effect.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see those characters, and just kind of see like them in sort of a new way. Like Spectre, he's never around,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a shame because it's such a cool character, and so to kind of see him as the I don't know if it's really, I guess the guide,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it was a lot
Um
of magic-y characters in the story, rightfully so. Like,
yeah,
you find out that the weird little troll girl is an enchantress. I'm like, I did not
yeah,
see
yeah.
that coming at all.
I mean, I saw it only because you could see her little moon.
Yeah.
Right away. I really liked that. So, should I talk spoilers here
Yeah.
or
Oh, we
no?
go full spoilers. Full spoilers.
Okay, all right. Because I didn't know if we should.
Yeah. No, I give them a warning at the end, or at
All
the
right.
beginning. At the beginning.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Spoiler. Oh wait, I should have told you. Yeah. No, I really. So the two things I really loved was Spectre was like the guide towards death. He was sort of like the ferryman on the
Mhm.
River Styx, and then Enchantress, I felt like she was death.
Yeah.
Like at some point, when Bruce was a kid, um, there's a line in there. What does it say? It says tearless or fearless,
Oh yeah.
and I think that might have been the point where that was the deal where Bruce had made, like, yeah, he doesn't want to be sad, he wants to turn into a fearless hero or whatever. And so then maybe at that point, so she was the personification of death, she now owned his soul. And then yeah, Spectre was him, like, you taking him to to the land of the dead.
Yeah.
And then on the the sort of closing scene, yeah, when the drawer closes and Batman, just vanishes, you kind of really see that all come in together.
I literally, okay, so frankly, I read the story. It's only 3 issues. I read it and then I had to Wikipedia the plot because I was like, I don't know what just happened, what I just read. And so, like, that's your brain's working better than mine did, because some of that stuff I just know who I am, and I'm like, it goes over my head. I'm like, sometimes I need to be spoon fed this stuff. And so, yeah, like I did.
It kind of did the first time also for me, like,
Yeah.
especially because in the first page, the first couple pages, I was reading the dialogue as if Batman was saying it.
Yeah.
And then on, the fourth or fifth page or whatever, it was revealed that Constantine is narrating it.
Mhm.
And so, like, I was reading stuff as different characters. And so then I kind of like, I went back, I reread those first couple pages. And then even after reading it all the way through, I was like kind of thinking about it. And then I read it again just to like more grasp it. And then I got all that other stuff. And then I went to read a little bit about the book online, just about the authors and the label and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that Brian Azzarello is a great pick for Black Label stuff. I said how I feel about Batman and Black Label, but going in, we were talking about some of the real world, and we live in a rated R world. I want to hear what you thought about the background stuff, because I totally missed this plot. I didn't understand what was happening, and so I'm really glad I figured it out, I read it on Wikipedia. But what do you think about the background stuff with Thomas and Martha Wayne? Are you pro that, or
I'm pro seeing stuff in a different light. Like, this is the one-off issue and whatever. And so I think something that's man, I don't want to say this. It's I don't want to say it's cool to see, this sort of story arc with their marriage, but it's
these
like
are
it's
fictional.
interesting to see it.
Yeah.
Because we have, as consumers of this medium, have always looked at Thomas and Martha as just such great parents, and they have a great marriage, and everything is great, but yeah, we've never seen how they actually are in their marriage day to day,
Yeah.
and it very well could have been like that.
Yeah.
We don't know. And so so yeah, like they could have had a real marriage with real struggles and all this sort of stuff, and that could have very well happened, and they could have been in therapy and all that stuff together.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of those things that made me think, like, what if in Keaton Batman or in Pattinson Batman or like all this stuff, when it kind of shows a little bit into the past of his parents, like, yeah, what if their marriage was rocky? Like, we as comic consumers, like, yeah, we really don't know. And so I don't want to say I'm pro seeing them in a negative light, but I am pro diving into who they are, just because it's so interesting. And even from personal experience, I mentioned earlier that I lost a parent. Like, I lost my dad when I was pretty young, and I'd always had such a great relationship with him, and he was, this typical my dad was my hero kind of stuff growing up and all that. And now being 35, I look back and it's like, yeah, I still feel that way, but also I know who I am as a person, and I know my flaws and all my shortcomings. So it's just like, I know my dad had all of those same things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just never saw them as his kid, because our dynamic was different than the dynamic he had with his peers.
Yeah.
So so it's interesting, kind of just taking from my own life, like my perception of someone versus someone else's perception of somebody, or experiences.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a really interesting add-in, which I really enjoyed, just because it was so different and so unexpected.
Yeah, really.
That I think I enjoyed it for that it was just the unexpected, and you're just like, you're taken aback because you'd never thought about it. Like, I'm sure anyone who's ever read this, read all 3 issues or the full novel or whatever, they've never thought once about Thomas and Martha's marriage.
Oh yeah, no, I think you're right. And as you become a Batman fan, like not that saying you're not, but I mean, like, as you read more Batman, I just think that I've realized my favorite characters in the Batman universe it's not even Batman. Like, I think I've come to the conclusion that my 2 favorite characters are Alfred and Commissioner Gordon, because I think like they are so fascinating, and like how they're the only 2 who can check him. So going into the art of this story, how did you like Lee Bermejo's portrayal of Gotham? It was very like specific, obviously very gritty and dark in tone. How'd you like that?
I really liked it. I thought it was pretty accurate. I kind of didn't even flinch at it.
Yeah.
Like, it was just very right on, and it was very in line with the tone of the whole story too. Like the explosions and raining and like whatever, it's very Gotham.
Yeah, and like it, I think there's number one, we're really lucky that to get him on a full book, because you'll just see that guy do like posters and prints and stuff, and they're all like so beautiful, like the occasional like variant cover or whatever. But to get him on like a full title is awesome. He did a really good like Batman. This is right up his alley too, because he did a Batman Christmas story called Noel, and it's him doing like Batman.
I think I saw that.
Oh yeah, it's OG, and like he did like Batman Ghost of Christmas Past, like he's Ebenezer Scrooge or whatever. It's wild, man.
That's pretty sick. I kind of want to look that up now. I didn't even know that existed.
Oh yeah, that's like, for me, I obviously picked this book up more for his art than for Azzarello's writing, just because like he doesn't
Yeah.
resonate with me. But then you see all that Dead Man stuff was just like Lee Bermejo going off. He's like,
Yeah,
I got this.
the Dead Man illustrations were super cool. I really liked how he showed the effect of him like possessing people.
Yeah.
That was super cool. And his whole depiction of Dead Man too, like I like that his suit or whatever looked more like it was exposed muscles rather than like an actual suit. Like I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, and even at the end, so I have the graphic novel, not the 3 issues, and at the end it shows all the variants, all the variant covers, and all the extra art, and it's really cool. I really like looking through all that. I like when books include that at the end.
Yeah, same. And I'm so bad, like, because I buy all those variant covers too, because I just think like in that moment I'm like, oh, this is $5, like absolutely I have this like a beautiful art. And so I have one. Well, Jim Lee did a bunch of the variant covers for this book. I got there's a issue number 2, there's a variant for that. I picked it up because it's like, I don't know, the tones and the colors. How did you like the bat suit in this book compared to others that you've seen?
It's pretty solid. It kind of reminded me of a mix between Affleck and Pattinson. Like it was kind of like a hybrid of those 2 suits. Definitely wasn't as armor as Pattinson's.
Yeah.
But it seemed like a bit like I don't know. I was really into it. I liked it.
Are you okay? Wait, are you pro armor Batman, like super armor Batman, or pro like fabric Batman? This is an important question.
I kind of like the in between. I don't like the heavy armor because part of Batman's abilities is his ability to fight really well. I don't know how, limber and fast you can be fully armored, but I don't think you need to be, thin costume. Like it's got to be somewhere in the middle, Like I think, man, I think Christian Bale, his first and second suits, I think were pretty good. Where it's like they were armor, but they weren't like full plated, like whatever. Even when he was talking in the movies of Lucius, where he's like, "Oh, this is like a bunch of armor, but they're plates, so there's gaps in between."
Yeah,
and so it made it like, he actually talks about like, "Oh yeah, you'll be fast, but you'll have the gaps where someone could stab you."
Yeah, like the second movie suit. So his second suit was the first time in like cinema history that Batman could turn his head and like move his head up and down, which is like so mind blowing to think about.
Yeah, it's really funny that we never even thought about that, and then they made a joke like, "Oh, you want to be able to turn your head?"
Yeah.
Like, "Oh yeah, make backing out the driveway easier."
Yeah, and then
I'm like, "Yeah, I never thought about that." And then you look at Keaton Batman, and he's
yeah, he has to
doing this,
turn his shoulders around to turn his head. It's just like, oh man, but like, there's an affinity for it, and they stylized those Burton movies so well. Like I think those are. Yeah. I am of the school of thought that I think Jack Nicholson's my favorite live action Joker, just because like if you opened up a comic book, that's who he is, and like at the time especially. So I'm everyone's doing messed up makeup Joker now, and that's just not my jam. So
yeah, I every time I read a Joker line, I read it in Mark Hamill's voice.
Oh, and that's the right way to read it. That's
yeah.
Are you watching any of that Batman animated series stuff? Like I don't know if you have HBO Max, but
I do. I mean, that's how I'm watching all the DC animation stuff.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
I haven't watched it recently. The last time I watched it was probably a couple of years ago. But I mean, yeah, the whole reason to watch it is Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and
like it's hard to like it's hard to not be disappointed when you watch anything animated Batman, and Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill are not the voices.
No, I'm totally with you. And I think if I was to give props to anyone else afterwards, I'd say Bruce Greenwood, who did like Young Justice
Yeah.
Batman and then Under the Red Hood
He
Batman.
he did Under the Red Hood, which
Yeah.
I love. Under the Red Hood is one of my favorite DC movies.
Yeah.
And then what's his name? Oh, man, John DiMaggio.
Yeah.
He did a good Joker, but I'm like, man, I just like want to hear your voice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But like his Joker was great though.
yeah. I think that was like one of
And I love John DiMaggio. I love Bender. I love freaking Adventure Time. Like I love all of his voices.
Yeah, he's oh no, totally, he's great. It's cool though too, because like I don't know, some of those guys they got like even Jensen Ackles in that is Jason Todd, which is like all time. Every fan wants him to be Jason Todd now, so I'm a fan.
He did Batman in
Long Halloween.
Yeah, there you go. I was like, which one? Yeah, he did Batman Long Halloween too.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to
he's
watch
better.
that.
He's better at Red Hood.
Oh yeah.
Batman.
Those movies are so freaking striking too. Like I don't know, the new animation doesn't hit with me as hard, but the old animation is so good. Okay, so last question. I didn't have much personally to say about Batman Damned because like it was 3 issues. I didn't understand what was going on, but you know, otherwise, like, yeah, no, I thought it was solid. What would you rate the story out of 10?
Oh man, it's. I feel like that's such a hard question, just because there's so many aspects of it that I love. The casual readability is really tough, so it definitely knocks down some points. Like I had to read it twice to understand it, and then I didn't. And then even still, when we decided to talk about it, I was like, all right, let me brush up. I'm gonna, like, kind of skim through it again. And so its casual readability kind of sucked. I did like the creative take on the characters, like especially like the marriage of the Waynes. I liked the different stuff with like Enchantress and Spectre. I think those two are my favorite like character alterations.
Yeah. Not Jason Blood.
Yeah. I forgot that his name is Jason Blood in there. So when you said Jason Blood, I was like, who's that? And then I was like, oh, you forgot to say Etrigan. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot.
No, you're good.
I don't know. So the art was great. Like it's wild seeing Batman's mortality, which I think as much as we hate it, it's important to see that he is still a person.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which like I love that they often show like his scars and all that stuff. They show that he's not invincible, which I think is really important for him, for his whole story arc. But to see that he is mortal is shocking, but it is also, I think, important to see. I don't know, I guess I would say I would probably give it a 7 or an 8, right in there. Yeah,
we can do decimals too if you want.
All right, so let's say 7.5. I think it was so creative, and it changed our perception of all of these characters, which I thought was really good. I think it only really gets knocked down some points just because it is hard to understand.
Yeah.
It's like trying to read Ulysses by James Joyce. Sure. I can try reading Ulysses. I'll read the same, I'll read the first page 30 times and not even know where I'm going.
Yeah, and that's I feel like that's a common theme, and I've realized that about myself for like some writers, like Brian Azzarello is one of those. Another one is Warren Ellis, who like notoriously did the famous remake on Moon Knight. I'm like, I read a bunch of his stuff. I'm like, I tried to do a video review for Moon Knight, the 6-issue series that he did that really like Mr. Knight and all that stuff came from it.
Yeah.
I was like, I could not explain to the camera what happened in the 6 issues that I read. And I was like, this is a garbage review. I literally just don't even know what I'm saying. And so I felt that way kind of about this book too. That's why I was like,
Yeah.
I want to pull something, but I don't really know what I can pull. So I feel what you're saying. There's two things I wanted to hop on, and one being you talking about the humanity of Batman. I agree, and I think that this got that too because yeah, the first thing is the humanity of Batman because it makes me think of the movie with Pattinson, and I think one of the
Yeah.
things that I'm deciding whether or not I liked about that movie was that we not only saw like how Batman, I really think it was a real take of how he would be, but also how the
Yeah.
world would perceive him. Like I think Batman is kind of a like if he was out there, we would think he is a total weirdo. I'm like, you are socially awkward
Oh
and
yeah.
they nailed it.
Yeah. He really is. Like I think yeah, that was definitely one of the strong points of Pattinson's performance was that he did make him like kind of awkward.
Yeah.
And then even like there was even comments about like um which with also Andy Serkis as Alfred. At first I was like I knew he'd be good,
Yeah.
but then I was like, I don't, how is it gonna be, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Because he's very famous for voices and being
Yeah,
really animated.
and being gorillas, literally.
Yeah, and then like seeing that dynamic was like it was amazing. But yeah, even like um oh, what was it? He was saying something um about Bruce going out, out
Yeah,
into the public or whatever.
yeah,
And like it kind of made it like a light comment, but yeah, he was definitely really like awkward when he was out like at the funeral and all
yeah.
that. And I thought what I thought was really cool about the Batman was that you kind of barely saw Bruce Wayne.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like
Which
that
is
I thought
great.
was really cool. We've never gotten a movie where it was all Batman. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
it was all Batman and only, a couple scenes of Bruce Wayne.
You're right. I'm thinking about that now, and I think you're really right. I'm trying to think. There's only I can think of like two off the top of my head where we really got Bruce, and that was about it, though.
Yeah, and what I thought was nuts too, which I love that they took a lot of inspiration from year one. Obviously, it was year two because
Yeah,
you could
yeah,
see his diary where it says year two on it.
yeah,
But even when he's riding around on his motorcycle and stuff, and he has his backpack and like
yeah,
the rest of the bat suits in the backpack,
yeah.
obviously. And so I thought that was kind of a fun little thing that they did where it's like, yeah, he's still figuring out how to transport all that stuff, how to be Batman and how to do all those things, even though
Yeah.
he's, 2 years into it.
No, yeah, absolutely. It was good. And so like I saw that though also in this story that we read. And then I guess my second is it was a point, but now it's a question. And it makes me think, how'd you feel about Batman killing Joker? Was it believable? Was it justified? Like, do you buy into it? How do you feel about it?
That's a mixed feeling thing. Um, Towards the end of the comic, when it's showing him killing Joker, I think he knew he was gonna die,
Yeah.
and so I think that Batman chose to kill him because he he even says it. He was afraid of what he was gonna do. He's like,
Yeah.
now Batman's not here. Like he knows that he needs the dynamic. You
Mhm.
need Batman and Joker. Like
Yeah.
you can't have the scale tipped one way,
Mhm.
because it's and so I think I understand it. But then Joker's alive
Yeah.
at the end.
Yeah. That was. I was like, I looked it up afterwards. I'm like, is there going to be a sequel? Because Batman's dead. What's going to happen? So I don't know.
So that is something I'm still confused on. But also, when I was reading after I read it the second time and I read up about it, it's this book was made to be just open for any interpretation.
Yeah.
So it's basically all just fan theories.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's either what I get from it, it's either Joker was never dead, but Batman just had so much trauma from injuries, and so he died in the ambulance.
Oh,
is what
yeah.
I'm guessing. He died in the ambulance, and then right when the ambulance guy in the back is about to take off his cowl, I think that's the point where his, like, life flashes before your eyes moment started.
Yeah, I
And
think,
then
yeah.
and so I think he thinks he killed Joker, and then once he was put back in the drawer in the morgue, then you see Joker actually lived.
Yeah.
And so the other one was like, oh, I wish he was still here, and then Batman sacrifices himself for the Joker. But I think that seems less likely. I think more it's he thinks he killed him, and he's kind of living with that in his last moments, and then then he's in the morgue, and Joker's actually alive.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that, because like, yeah, the moment of death, I think I totally agree with, because I think that makes the most sense. And, that's kind of when everything got a little bit more elevated. So
Yeah.
it's, and like also too, wouldn't that be the end of Batman? Is everyone finding out who he is, And
Yeah.
so like him, that if that's how he goes and that's the moment he goes, I just think that all checks out for me. So yeah. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was so fun. We've already talked. We're going to do this again soon. So we'll get into the Black Label books. You were saying Harleen, and I'm down for Harleen because I hear that is so good and I've never read it.
Yeah. Everyone I know who's read it, which not many people, but all of those people, everyone says it's the best one. I mean, I've only read one Black Label, but so far, like, I'm so interested just because this was so interesting. And so
it's funny too. It's fast and loose what DC considers Black Label, because like what was once Vertigo is now Black Label, and like even I'd tell those friends I'd make sure they would have read Mr. Miracle, because that's like by Tom King and Mitch Gerrard's one of the all-time best. So and now it's officially Black Label. And there's one I'd love to share with you as an animated series fan. It's called Batman White Knight, which is
I actually have that saved on my favorites, and I'm gonna pick that up.
That is, and I mean,
I was gonna pick up today.
Oh, good, because I will tell you right now, that is when it came out, and like finally when I read it, it was my favorite Joker story in the last 10 years. I think it is all time, and that artist is ridiculous. And as a car guy, he draws also some of the best freaking cars ever. So
that's awesome. Hopefully I test negative
Batmobiles
soon so I can visit comic stores again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for making time. For all the fans, make sure to like and subscribe. Check us out on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Cameron Reads Comics. And is there any plugs that you want to make for anything you are going on? No.
Just like and subscribe. This is a good channel.
Like and subscribe. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much, Alan. We will see you next time.
All right. See ya.